Plyometrics for hockey players. Just don't be dumb. I'm Dr. Jamie Phillips, Doctor of Physical Therapy, Strength Coach, former professional goalie, and I'm on a mission to help as many hockey players as I can have the best offseason that they can. So if you've ever Googled hockey workouts, you probably have seen plyometrics to some degree. Usually it's something completely off the wall, backflips, single leg balance, box jumps, cartwheels, whatever. That stuff looks impressive. And you know what, to be honest, it is. But the most important part is it effective? Is it safe? And is it something that you should be doing? So let's talk about plyometrics, what they are, how you use them, and why a lot of people miss the mark and do too much too early. Plyometrics, keep it simple, are just jump-based movements in order to improve, 1, explosiveness, 2, balance, 3, proprioception. Proprioception is just a fancy word for saying your body's understanding of where it is in space. Plyometrics are unbelievable for improving all the things I mentioned before. So, and how does that translate in the ice? Well, better skating, better ability to absorb force, give force, hits, and better pushes in the ice, quick stops, all those things, goalies, power pushes, T-push, shuffles, all that stuff can be improved with proper plyometric training. Biggest thing is explosive power. That's kind of where most people will talk about plyometrics, and we look at the training, and it's great. Like, they're unbelievable. All these exercises are awesome for improving one's ability, in this case, hockey players' ability to become more explosive. They can also be used to improve muscle elasticity, and not really in the way of like stretching, as we would talk about like static stretching or dynamic stretching, but more in the ability to utilize the shortening cycle, which essentially, to simplify, think about if we pull elastic, it snaps back. So we can use that same idea with our muscles, where if we stretch them and they snap back into a quick place. That's probably the really most simple way that I can explain it. If you want a more in-depth explanation, I'll probably write a blog about the stretch shortening cycle here and post it in the newsletter. That also brings me to my next point. All these tips are sent in my newsletter. Yes, am I doing long form content? Yeah, but I go into a little bit more of a detailed breakdown in the newsletter, and I send a lot of cool things in there. So like I said, just subscribe. The worst case, you hate it, you unsubscribe. Plyometrics can also be used to help improve movement efficiency. So not as much as we're specifically designing drills to replicate what we do on the ice, which I'm going to talk about weaponized specificity, not a term that I coined, that was by Zach Tellender, but I am mad that I didn't coin it. But the more you can improve your body awareness, your balance, all those things, it's going to help translate on the ice. But a well-programmed plyometric program, that was a mouthful, can be used to help mimic certain things that you do on the ice without a direct one-to-one translation, but like 45-degree bounce, for example, it's similar to a stride. And yes, we are not using them for the goal of increasing our stride efficiency. Best way to do that is to go on the ice and work with a power skating coach to do that stuff. But we work a lot of those same muscles, and we train a lot of those major attributes that correlate and carry over in hockey. Jamie, that sounds awesome. Yeah, you're right. It does sound awesome. But here's where most people start to miss the mark. And the biggest one is the internet show-off drills. I don't know how that's probably the best way to explain it, where on the internet, keep this in mind, I am guilty of it as well. We want to get likes, views, clicks. So we put the most fancy, crazy thing we could think of. I have a banded, supported while band resisted, single leg dynamic somersault, goalie, butterfly exercise. Do you need that? No, probably not. You're probably not even there yet. The problem is it gets clicks, gets you to my landing page. The landing page is this. It's called Business 101. And you know what? That's okay. I respect business professionals. However, I don't respect people giving disinformation or, coming into my next set, doing plyometric programs without a foundation. Like everything, you need a foundation, and plyometrics are actually really specific. The British, I forgot what it's called. I need to do a Google search here. British National Strength Conditioning Association. The UK Strength Conditioning Association, should have known that one, pretty obvious, has cited that you need around a 2 times body weight squat before you even start plyometrics. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that 100%, but it just shows you that if that association that relies heavily in the research, and the Brits, Australians, and Canadians, for the most part, are a little bit more advanced with their strength and conditioning research than we are in the United States. I really, really wanted to make a joke about the American healthcare system as someone who works in the American healthcare system, sort of. I guess I own a private out-of-network clinic, but I thought that was in bad taste. However, we all, as if you are not American, we all know we make it fun of it as someone who is a Canadian expat. And if you are an American, I know, I get it. It's frustrating as heck. Don't blame the practitioners, blame the insurance companies. So in programming plyometrics, you really need to start very, very simple. You don't need to do box jumps into a super high box. Actually, for the most part, in a really good plyometric program, especially for young youth athletes, is really simple things where it's pogo jumps or very small depth jumps with stick. Depth jump sticks and explode, non-counter movement jumps, very simple things. Very rarely should those athletes ever be doing crazy dynamic things. A well-programmed program also should include a little bit of sports variation. So they're going and playing basketball, volleyball, spike ball. These things that also require some jumping. The training portion of that needs to be really specific and tailored and progresses as that athlete ages and as their skill level increases. Once they basically got to a point where they have met the requisite need and positioning and technique, then and only then can they advance into something more advanced. I kind of got away from my notes there and it got into, that was my fourth point, was no progression or structure. So I'm gonna just count that in there. Make sure there's a progression, make sure there's a structure. So if you're an athlete out there, you're a parent of an athlete, make sure you're following a good program that is designed properly and isn't just thrown together some goalie specific training nonsense. I know you don't want to be a goalie specific athlete. You want to be an athlete. Your training shouldn't be specific. It should be athlete specific. I'm going to scream this to the top of the lugs. This is going to be one of the hills I die on. Along with that, goalies need better pegs, but that's a battle that I'm currently fighting and currently losing. And finally is no recovery built in. So a well-designed program when you're doing like plyometrics or like sprint stuff or anything, you need a lot of rest. I don't know off the top of my head, like every ratio is going to be different in rest, but you almost need at least a 2-to-1 rest to work ratio. Most of my programs are around a 3-to-1, even 4-to-1. I want athletes to be fully recovered, get that nervous system back before their next output. Because when doing plyometrics, we want maximal force production. We don't want to half-ass things. We want it to be dialed in. If you involve this program, I like to add a few meaningful steps at the end of the video and the end of the newsletter so that there's something that you can take away. And this is kind of more if you're unsure, if you don't want to follow one of my programs or anything like that, here's something you can do on your own. 1, make sure you focus on quality, not quantity. I would rather you do 2 exercises at the start of a training session and you do 4 or 5 reps with a 2-minute rest between it, where your work sets are only like 5 or 6 seconds, then you just jump, go crazy. Because again, quality over quantity, especially when plyometrics, they're very valuable tools that you can use, but it's easy to do them the wrong way. Start simple. Very rarely do I even have weighted plyometric exercises, and most of these are for my more advanced athletes, ones that are getting into 16, 17, 18. But when I get athletes that are around that age that have never trained properly, we really start with a lot of the basics. But for some reason, we don't treat plyos like we treat strength training. So like you're never going to get a new athlete, regardless of age, and get them on the bar and be like, oh, here's 225, here's 315, squat it. No, you learn, you squat the bar, you progress up, you get stronger, your form breaks down as you add more weight. Okay, let's lower the weight. You progress from here. The same needs to go for plyometrics. Time them right. We want to make sure that we're not doing too much at the wrong time. In the off season, we get a little more leeway because we're not playing games. In season, you should 100% be doing plyos, but we want to make sure we're managing fatigue levels, making sure that they're programmed properly, whether that's early in the week or using as a primer, or we're not doing just plyos for an hour and all of a sudden the nervous system shot and they have to get on the ice and train. That's a recipe for injury. I feel like as someone that owns a physio clinic, I shouldn't be giving you guys all these injury prevention tips. How else am I going to see on my table for a proper return to sport protocol? Finally, pair it with some strength training. Plyos are awesome, but they shouldn't be done in isolation only with plyos unless it's a specific speed or jump program, mainly in season where you're working on specific attributes. You want to make sure you're taking advantage of a good, well-rounded strength program. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you're not following along with the 30 and 30, make sure you click the link below to sign up. It's one of those newsletters where I promise you will get a lot of value of it. And like I said before, if you don't, or you just sick of listening to me, unsubscribe. That's okay. It doesn't hurt my feelings. That's not true. It does hurt my feelings. Please don't unsubscribe. I appreciate everyone for watching. Stay tuned for the next one. I don't know how much more I'm going to put on YouTube because the primary driver is to the newsletter because that's where all the best information is. So go click right there, subscribe, do it. And if you get value from this and you're on YouTube and you really refuse to subscribe to the newsletter, leave me a comment. It does help. Or listen to YouTube, watch whatever videos here, or don't. Like I said before, I'm not your dad. I don't care. Actually, that's not true. I do care because I care about you as hockey players and as humans. I want you to be the best of both that you can be and not to do dumb things that you see on the internet. Follow well-programmed structures. Well-structured programs. Follow well-programmed structures. I'm going to edit that out because I look like an idiot when I'm saying that. Talking to cameras is hard sometimes.